This is Dropped on Soccer's morning show. Soccer down here. John here, you there. Packed show this morning. And just how packed is it? We will barely have time to get through opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com until we are joined by someone who probably hasn't had a whole lot of sleep. Might have been just eating a whole lot on the go. Might be a whole lot of like Dunkin' Donuts and drive-thrus and trying to sit there and come up with 3 squares a day ever since North Carolina FC won the championship in USL League One. Their head coach John Bradford joining us in about 10 minutes, and we'll see how things are when it comes to how much coffee he's had, how much sleep he's had, how much celebrating has been going on, all of that. So that'll be fun. Catching up with the coach. It's been a while since we've had a coach on the show, and it'll be fun to see how things are after the Dogwood Derby goes their way, knocking off Charlotte Independence to get the championship in USL League One. 10 o'clock, it is Kaylor Hodges from the USL show, at Kaylor Hodges at the USL show on the 280-character app, joining in his normal 10 o'clock time slot. We'll go over the USL League One title game. We'll go over the conference finals in USL Championship, and we will lay out the championship, where Phoenix has conquered the entire state. They may as well just annex California now, almost like the movie Americathon, but in reverse, where Phoenix has knocked off 3 consecutive teams from the state of California. We'll get into that with Kaylor. We'll get into the championship preview. We'll look at the finalists in USL Championship when it comes to the postseason awards and see if the USL show guys agree with the assessments, although I know the fact that Jack Gurr was not part of the MVP, up for Defender of the Year, but not part of MVP voting. That probably has already rubbed Kaylor the wrong way, and we'll go over all of the finalists that have been a part of that conversation as we go. Then at 10:30, as always, it is Niko Moreno hopping in, and it will be Thursdays with Niko, where we go over everything Major League Soccer and playoffs and cards and penalties and suspensions and all of that. And we'll try to pin that in the final half hour of the show. At 9:30, we'll go over what happened last night and yesterday, because apparently it was another very, very busy VAR day. A VAR day. Not Jamie Varday, but just a VAR day in general. So our friends at VAR were very, very busy, and we'll go over what happened in the Philadelphia match with New England and Mark Anthony Kaye, and we'll go over MLS playoffs and what happened in Champions League yesterday, because apparently Manchester United is less than pleased with what's going on. By the way, Prem and Proper coming out tomorrow. Maddie Cruz with her assessments of what's going on, Drew Dickinson with his assessments of what's going on, and Drew is already fired up because of Champions League for his Manchester United, plus what's going on in the Premier League. So Drew will be fired up for 3D. Maddie will come in, give her thoughts as well. Prem and Proper will be out tomorrow, in addition to our NWSL last game of the season review preview. That'll be happening as well. That's coming up on the network tomorrow. Also on the network tomorrow, 10 o'clock, Thomas Rongen. We catch up and find out more about the movie Next Goal Wins. So that'll be fun, catching up with Thomas Rongen tomorrow. And that'll be at 10 o'clock after, hopefully, our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. And always remember, the next time that Michael Parkhurst is on the show, the star sets the bar, and don't doubt Atlanta. So I've got to find that video. It doesn't exist, I don't think, out in the ether. And I've got to get that drop. I want the drop where Cap goes, "Don't doubt Atlanta." I want to drop that in as we've got stuff going on. So very, very busy show. John Bradford coming up in about 5 minutes. Then it's hour number 2, Kaylor Hodges, the USL show. Niko Moreno coming in at 10:30 for the last half hour of the show. And then we are off and running with everything going on with juice boxes. And actually, it's Thanksgiving side dishes. So Thanksgiving side dishes, all of the numbers, all the competitions. We'll let you know gossip, rumor, and innuendo, who's going where, when, if I could get my upper plate to work. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about this morning across the board. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. Morning, Alex. Kickoff Coffee and at kickoffcoffeeco.com. covering that up, covering up the QR code for hour number 2. I've got to figure out how to do that with a better arm. That's your QR code for our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And they, in turn, you don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You use the code SoccerDownHere15, you get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into youth games and youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Beat 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I don't want to confuse anybody's QR codes and having more than one up at one time. Did you see? This was in a championship match last night where Universitario was playing Alianza Lima. Universitario wins 2-0 to win their championship. At the final whistle in Liga Uno Max, it was at Alianza Lima's stadium. So, Universitario wins 2-0. Final whistle blows. And they shut out the lights. Literally, they just turn the lights off. You won in our place. You won a title. I'm shutting the lights off. You go celebrate on your own. You go find another way to do it. Maybe turn the lights on your cell phones. You go ahead and do that. You ain't celebrating in our place. That's the first time in a while I can think of things happening. I mean, that's happened to me in high school football, where I've been at a building and the visiting team won a championship and they shut the power off. And actually, to be perfectly honest, we'll go ahead and go here. To be honest, when that happened, we were in a live broadcast. It was a championship game and the visiting team won. So literally, we're doing our post game, but all of our stuff on the ground is attached, all of our wireless material, it's attached to the audio setup that we had that was plugged in to that same run of cables and such. So literally, we're having to do a post game show live. I can't hear the truck because the home team shut off all the power to like the scoreboard and anything that was essential. They didn't shut off the power to the overhead lights like they did at Alianza Lima last night. But yeah, so we were literally having to do a post-game show and I couldn't hear the truck. And so I'm talking to the game-winning coach. They've won a championship and I'm literally just asking questions, like 98 questions, and until I'm told, by somebody to stop talking. But the coach actually kind of shut it off himself. He's like, I'm going to go celebrate. I've had enough. And so literally, this was probably one of the longest post-game interviews I've ever done. But it was crazy. That's the only time that I've had like lights and power shut off on me, was in a situation like that. So I've had it happen to me in a professional environment. Universitario had it happen to them last night. They won a title at Alianza Lima. Alianza Lima hit the light switch, the game was over, and they were done. So I'm hoping that everybody from the stadium got out in one piece. I'm hoping that everybody got out safely. I'm hoping that everyone celebrated safely. But obviously it was going to be a little different, that folks were trying to celebrate, and they couldn't quite do it because they couldn't quite see their teammates. So the video's out there. It's pretty funny. But, yeah, that has happened to me where I've had to try and navigate a situation without any power whatsoever, much like our friends at Alianza Lima and Universitario got a chance to do. All right, so that's story time with John. That's also your opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com, covering up the QR code for hour number 2, so I don't confuse your QR code readers. There you go. Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. Thanks to our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. They in turn take 10% reinvested into youth initiatives, youth games, brought to us by our friends there at Kickoff Coffee. All right, this one's going to be fun. It's been a while since he's been on the show, and it's a fantastic reason to have him back on the show. And so we do the hot tag here. Opening kickoff is done, and we welcome in John Bradford, Victoria. Where's the trophy?
Yeah, trophy's at the office. They wouldn't let me keep it. I've got a medal back here somewhere, which is nice. So it's good.
I mean, how much of this has sunk in yet? First off, for those who are just listening, by the way, the victorious head coach of North Carolina FC winning the USL League One championship over the weekend. How much of this has sunk in so far? You got the medal, the trophy's not there at the house, but how much of this has sunk in?
Yeah, I'd say a good portion of it. We've been able to reflect on this year, and then obviously what happened on Sunday. But Monday and Tuesday we were doing exit player meetings with all the guys and making sure we're covering our bases there. And there's been a lot of other things to take care of in the meantime. But we're still very ecstatic about it. Very satisfied with the outcome for this long year for this great group of players. So
has this been a caffeine and carbs diet for you ever since the championship game, where everybody's knocking on your door and Jake Levy's answering emails? Let's see if we can get everybody squared away. What has your diet been like ever since? Have you had a chance to breathe?
It's been busy, but I'll say that I've always been a caffeine guy. Multiple coffees throughout the day, so I was well prepped to be able to adjust and handle it.
Was there a moment in the season where you kind of might have had a moment to yourself and you said there, okay, something special might be going on here with this group? Or was it just a gradual thing, and when you got into the postseason, it's hitting everything the right way, and every cylinder is meshing all at the same time? Or was there a moment where you're like, yeah, man, something special is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's never something where you want to go down early in a game and then have to fight your way back and that kind of thing. But there was a stretch of games where we conceded early in the first half, and sometimes against a run of play or whatever it may be, and then ultimately fought back and even didn't and went ahead and won those games. And during that stretch, after having 2021 and 2022, where that was kind of the script, where maybe we'd go up early or we'd concede early or whatever it would be, and ultimately we wouldn't be successful at the game. This group showed a lot of character and a lot of ability to fight through that. And like I said, obviously we didn't want to go down, but there was a stretch where it was like, okay, if the group can find ways to win games even when we're not at our best, and continue to push forward, then we've got ourselves a chance.
When it comes to USL League One, I don't think a lot of folks outside of the USL footprint may understand just how incredibly competitive the league is top to bottom. For someone who's in there in a day in and day out basis, how tough is USL League One for someone who's never seen it?
I think it's incredibly competitive. It's good organizations, it's good coaching staffs, and the player pool is very good. And I think the reason for that is because the players are coming in with different experiences and different motivations and that kind of thing. There's several guys that have had MLS experience, and this might just be a different moment in their career. There's several guys that are on the younger end that this is going to be their platform to be able to break through and push forward and upward. There's a lot of internationals that maybe are unknown and that use League One as kind of the opportunity to be visible and have those opportunities. So the player pool that comes together throughout is quite strong, and I think getting stronger.
Take me into the locker room for the championship game. And I know that you can divulge as much information as you want. I just, since I didn't have a camera there and I wasn't there over your shoulder to listen to what was going on, what were the conversations going into the match? And we'll take this a section at a time, but going into this match against a rival like Charlotte, what were the conversations like just before you're going out there before first whistle?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's preparation and there's the ability to talk specifically about how we think Charlotte's going to line up, and there's the lineup exchange that always happens an hour and a half or an hour a little bit before the game, so you know exactly who they're going to be putting on the field. So you have to share that information with the players. But ultimately, our guess was exactly right. I'm sure Charlotte's guess was exactly right on what we were going to do, and so there wasn't much about brand new tactics. Then it just becomes a reminder of everything the guys have been through to get to this stage, and just a motivation to try to get out there and execute when the moment really matters.
So then you go through 90. You keep going. How crazy is it for you on the sidelines to try to make sure that everyone is still focused on the task at hand, you and the coaching staff, knowing that they're gassed, knowing that mentally they still have to be locked into a situation like this, and getting to that final end moment where you're trying to sit there and finally to determine a champion? How crazy is it when you're later than late, you're tired, you're more tired than tired, to try to keep everybody, including the coaching staff and all of the support staff, locked in so you guys can finish the deal?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of emotion. There's a ton of everybody trying to make sure that those moments that you do have on the sideline, that you make the best of them or using them. But with our group, if you've ever seen our sideline, it's never me as one person talking to a group of players and trying to say to them, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's a collection of people that are all pulling in the right direction and helping each other. Sometimes there's guys that are gassed that usually have a voice, and maybe somebody else steps up and come on, guys, we got this. Let's keep going. There's multiple staff that are talking to each individual and that kind of thing, and in a couple different moments throughout that time that you have on the sideline. But overall, there's a belief, there's an energy. When we conceded on the corner kick, I think everybody obviously was disappointed in that, but quickly then turned to, okay, now we've got 15 minutes to make sure that our season ends the way that we wanted to, and did awesome to be able to pull that out.
When it comes to PKs, you've got your order set, or at least you've got a good vibe as to what you want your order to be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent a lot of time on penalties, as you have to once we got into the postseason. Whether it's every day after training and trying to figure out what the order is going to be, which players are going to be the ones that feel comfortable and confident to be able to get it done, and kind of go from there. And then from the goalkeeping standpoint, I think it was, in all honesty, it was helpful, obviously, to have Charlotte have to go to PKs at Omaha the week before and have a lot of the same guys step up and go a lot of the same directions. And obviously, we try to be prepared in every way, shape, and form throughout the season, and penalties was definitely one of those too.
When you look at penalties, before the last words, once again, before you send the guys back out there to where they have to stand and watch and participate and watch some more and participate and watch some more, what are your last words for them in that group before they leave the touchline and the bench before you send them back out there?
Yeah, I mean, a bit of belief and a bit of just take a deep breath. This is not the end of the world, and all that kind of stuff. Go out with confidence and do something that you've done a million times before, and just do it in the best possible way you can. And the players also had their own messages. That kind of same kind of feeling of just like, hey guys, we're here. It's okay. Take a deep breath, go out there and just get it done. And ultimately, we have a ton of confidence in Brooks Thompson as well. We knew that he had to make one save, and then the guys had to execute, and it's exactly how it played out. Kid made an unbelievable save to push it on the underside of the crossbar. Each one of the guys that stepped up to take a penalty did so with confidence and quality. It worked out well.
Yeah, safe to say it did. John Bradford, head coach of North Carolina FC, hanging out with us here on the morning show. When it comes to you and this particular season, did you learn anything about yourself as a coach during this run and getting a championship? Did you learn anything about yourself as a coach?
I think I learned a ton, and learning from the other coaches in our coaching staff, learning from the players, learning from the game situations. Every season's a little different, and every game is a little different, and every group of players is a little different. Each locker room is different. So, everything that happened this year, I just tried to obviously do the best I could for the players and our staff in every way, but also learn. If this worked, if that didn't work, if this approach with that player didn't quite get the result that we wanted, or it did, and now we know this is a different way to approach this guy in this moment. I think those are all things that are able to take away from and push forward with.
All right, time to talk about your players a lot. And if you want to run down the roster and talk about how all these guys did some fantastic things, go for it. But I know a lot of folks look at the releases. It's like you've got 3 guys from the front 7 or 8 that are on the first team in USL League One. But when you look at this group of players, what has stood out individually and collectively about this group that got a title? So when I mention, I'm not going to mention player names because I know you can probably run through all of them. But when it comes to this group of guys, what has stuck with you about this group and about how they've evolved as players this season?
Yeah, I think their competitiveness, in the training environment specifically, has been one of these where every single day, when the guys show up to work and they're trying to improve themselves and improve the team, there's a level of respect, but there's also a level of accountability that the training environment has been positive and tough some days, and some hard tackles some days, and some words some days, but always ends with a handshake and a let's move forward kind of attitude. And I think off the field, a team, I've said this in a few of the interviews I've done, a team goes through so much, that each individual player might have circumstances that they're dealing with off the field. There might be injuries, there might be, whatever. And when you have a team that's there for each other and continues to try to support one another, it absolutely translates onto the field. In those moments that are in need of somebody else to step up and kind of pull along a teammate or something like that. When that happens, I think it's all from the collective environment on and off the field.
What's it like for you as a coach to see the players who at the beginning of the season are still trying to get adjusted to each other, try to figure out, okay, if I move here, you go here, you do this, for them to have each other's backs, to have that develop, to have those relationships develop. When you see the light come on for a player like, the player on the roster, and you see the collective come together, what's it like for you and the staff to see that light come on for these players?
I think that's what it's all about. I mean, you see either a player step up for one another, or you see a player improve something that they weren't maybe didn't think they were capable of doing in the past. But I've been in professional soccer now for a little bit, but youth soccer for a long time prior, and parallel. And to see player development, to see player improvement, and whether that's learning how to do something better on the field, or just improve their mindset and their ability to affect the environment. That's why I'm in this, And so when you see those things happen on the field, it's the whole reason we do it.
And now there's no rest. First off, you're doing all these interviews, but there's no rest for North Carolina FC, because the kind of the nudge into the sternum, the elbow into the ribs, it's like, hey, you won promotion, and you're heading to you won promotion from USL League One. But the move was announced that North Carolina FC was heading back into USL Championship after a couple of years in USL League One. And I know that the work has probably already started in some aspects, but when you look at USL Championship, because the championship is coming up this weekend, when you look at USL Championship as an entity and what you're stepping into with this group, what are you most looking forward to, and what's on the to-do list that you have to cross off now?
Yeah, and I mean, you said it best. We've had to have already kind of been parallel with how we finished this season, and obviously fully focused on trying to win a championship like the guys were able to do. But because of the rules and because of the way that the contract and the notice of communication is all structured, you have to start having conversations with players that are going to be available. They've got this July 1st notice of contact thing. So anybody that's out of contract in November, people can start talking to them from outside clubs as early as July. So it's kind of crazy, but at the same time, you have to have these conversations, because otherwise you don't know how that's going to play out, and if you're going to miss an opportunity with a player. So we've been kind of slowly building the roster already for next year, having conversations with our current guys that we'll be offering contracts to as we go to the championship, and really excited about all of it, to be honest, because the support from the owner Steve Malik and the front office. Maybe potential new investors on the men's side. I mean, there's a growing momentum that's going to allow us to come into the USL Championship, back in the championship where we were before, at a high quality, and put together a good product on the field, and help our fan base continue to grow and come back to us. So there's a lot of exciting things happening with the club right now.
And you're ending up stepping back into rivalries against teams like Tampa Bay and Charleston, Lou City, Indy 11, Birmingham, a lot of these familiar foes. You're stepping back into these rivalries all over again. I know, as someone who covers the league, I'm looking forward to it. And if you ever want to break any news about players that you're keeping, you can always come on and you can sit there and say, okay, hey, look, Nelly, we're going to do this. Just hop in at any time. Coach, congratulations. Catch your breath for probably 15 or 20 minutes before you have to do the next one of these. Fantastic work this season by everybody down there at North Carolina FC. Congratulations once again. And find your caffeine, get it in an app. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend. Congratulations.
John, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
That's John Bradford. He's the head coach of North Carolina FC. Hopefully he's going to go get some coffee. Maybe it's some bagels or some donuts or something just to catch his breath. But it's good to catch up with Coach. It's been a while since we've had him on. But North Carolina FC wins in USL League One. They are the champs, and now they go from USL League One to USL Championship, and it's going to be fun for them to see what's going on. It's going to be fun for us to cover what's going on. So that was fun. Once again, thanks to Jake Levy and everybody at North Carolina FC for orchestrating that and getting all of that squared away. All right, so now that we are in the show, morning, Abby, and let's talk about last night. Let's talk about last night. All right. I know that we're staring at things, And we've been staring a lot at VAR. And last night, Philly and New England had their game number 2. And Philadelphia, on one of the more Philadelphia goals that you could ever have off a set piece, where it's just this grounder and people getting in the way, and it goes in the back of the net, and they win 1-0. And we end up with Philadelphia advancing. And I'm just going to say this. The red card, and we can have this discussion, for the next half hour, and then we can have it once again when Niko pops back in at 10:30. I didn't think the red card was warranted. And I know that social media lit themselves afire with every possible analysis and looking at it like it's the Zapruder film and trying to figure out, okay, is it a red? Was there intent? What's he doing? All this kind of stuff. So we can compare notes. Here's what I think. This is from my observation. This is my observations of what's going on. So as we're looking at it from the camera positions, Gazdag goes down. And he's down, and Mark Anthony Kaye is, and as we're watching on the television screen, so we'll take it from the television screen perspective. Gazdag is down. Mark Anthony Kaye is over Gazdag. And his momentum is trying to carry him, and he's trying to figure out, he's leaning forward. He's trying to figure out how to step over Daniel Gazdag and continue walking forward, being engaged in the play, what have you. Gazdag is rolling, once again, as you're watching the television screen, Gazdag, to me, is rolling to camera. He's rolling to the right-hand side of the screen. And Mark Anthony Kaye, his momentum is carrying him in that direction as well. So literally what you see, and like I said, this is my perspective. We can compare notes. Gazdag is grabbing Mark Anthony Kaye. He's kind of reaching out, and he's got a piece of Mark Anthony Kaye's leg, his right leg, as he's rolling to the right edge of the television screen. And Mark Anthony Kaye has no choice to try to figure out where to step. Where else is that left leg going to go if Mark Anthony Kaye is going to stand on his own 2 feet? Mark Anthony Kaye, should have gotten a yellow, but his momentum and his walking and his positioning and his gravity gave him no choice but to continue the act the way that he did. Like I said, this is my perspective on it. Whatever you guys want to think in the Twitch pitch, we'll go ahead and share notes. So for the whistle to be called, and Tom says, okay, at first Tom thought it was purely accidental. Later replays looked to me like he put some extra force on it. And also remember that when you see something in replay, it is being slowed down, and it's, you get that extra emphasis in a slowed down speed and perspective. So remember, it's not full speed. And I think that we have to watch replays at full speed. Don't watch replays with things that, slow things down, and it sits there and it will emphasize when things are slowed down. Tom, as someone who has worked in media, we use replay to slow things down for emphasis so we can sit here and look at a play and have more analysis as to what we're staring at. Watch it full speed. Mark Anthony Kaye, for me, has no choice. He's trying to put his foot down as Gazdag is rolling and rolling forward and rolling away as Mark Anthony Kaye is trying to put his foot down. Mark Anthony Kaye's foot and his leg and his gravity have no choice but to do what they did. So, okay, fine. We have a foul. And Tom, I'm right there with you. Tom thinks there was still a little extra there. So, even if we're seeing what we see, Then it goes to VAR. And, and for those who were watching last night, you're getting the rewind, you're getting the fast forward, you're getting the shuttling of back and forth and all this kind of stuff. And you're seeing what we eventually saw, and they kept the red. Rich. Rich says, please tell Scooter, I hope the Revs players have a good time being parking attendants at Patriots games the rest of the season. Wow. Rich is coming in hard. But hey, you won 1-0. You advanced to the next round. Oh, Cincinnati and Philadelphia. That's going to set the sport back a decade. But you go to VAR, and you have the opportunity once again to analyze, look at full speed, what have you. Food for thought on two fronts having to do with the officiating assignments. Alex Chilowitz was the fourth. I think it was the 80th, Abby. Hang on just a second. Let me check it. But I think it was the 80th minute. And here comes Rich. Union beat the Revs. Sixers beat the Celtics. Philadelphia is better than Boston. I think it was the 80th with the goal. I want to say 78th with the punch through there on the triple hop. Yeah, Donovan scored in the 79th. Alex seems to remember early on with VAR, all replay angles had to be viewed at full speed. Seems that they moved to allowing slow motion, which really lends itself to re-refereeing. And that's I think part of this too. So you go to VAR. A couple of things with the officiating crew. Drew Fisher. We knew that Drew will give you reds. He has shown red cards. I think a quarter of the matches that he had refereed and been in the center, he had shown reds. Alex Chilowitz was the fourth. Alex Chilowitz has no business being involved in a Philadelphia match because of all of the stuff that has happened in Philadelphia matches with him in the center this season. He was center ref for one of the games that went completely and totally out of control. Second, Daniel Radford was your VAR. Daniel Radford was the VAR for both the Atlanta-Dallas match and the Atlanta-Philadelphia match this season. Take that into evidence, put it to the side. So there was just a lot that was out there with this particular match. But once again, Mark Anthony Kaye gets a red. I know that we can have conversations and agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, Philadelphia wins 1-0, they advance. So that's what you're staring at. Oh, we got a little bit of this. So we're going to have to pause our conversation here a little bit and go here. Breaking news this morning. CF Montreal has parted ways with Hernan Losada. So as we're having this discussion, while we were having the talk with John Bradford, CF Montreal have parted ways with Hernan Losada. Assistant coach Sebastian Setti has also been let go. Ultimately spent one season in charge with CF Montreal. Missed the playoffs following the 2-1 loss at Crew on decision day, finishing 10th. 41 points with a record of 12, 17, and 5. Very, very quick, terse statement from CF Montreal. Following the assessment, I thought I hit the button, but following the assessment of the season, it was determined this decision is in the club's best interest for 2024 and beyond. The selection process for CF Montreal's next head coach for 2024, for the 2024 season, is actively underway. So, Hernan Losada out at CF Montreal. But as we all know, the patience or lack of patience in involving coaches in Major League Soccer it's out there. Wonder how many more we had. We had Latanzio yesterday. We've had Hernan Losada today. Another round of questions. about hiring Hernan Losada in the first place. Didn't work at DC. CF Montreal is going to sit there and be like, well, yeah, okay, come on in. And see how that went. That didn't quite go well. So, Hernan Losada out. So a third of the league with changes this season. All right, so let's do the math. Let's do the math here. Let's look at the standings, and we'll sound off here. New England, Red Bulls, Charlotte, Montreal, DC, Chicago, Toronto. Half of the Eastern Conference. 7. In the West, Portland 8, Minnesota 9, Colorado 10. So 10 of 29. And if I'm missing somebody, let me know. But 10 of 29, yes. So the third, literally it's 10 of 29. So, Tom, you are absolutely correct. Yes, Miami, 11. So 11 of 29. Thank you, Michael. So 11 of 29 so far. Keep an eye on that. Put that in the filing. And with the coverage that happened last night on the televisions, we'll go over this here in a second. But that is not a correct statement. The statement that is on the screen. Tom, more bothered by the announcers saying Atlanta is the only East team that could not host the final. Missing something. They were wrong. Well, they're wrong. Because points-wise, Atlanta's at 51. Right now, RSL's at 50. Dallas is at 46. Kansas City's at 44. So the answer to that is no. That is not accurate information. So there it is. Yeah, so ahead of Sporting, Dallas, and Vancouver. There you go. And Michael, when over 60% of the league gets in the playoffs, if you don't get in, then that's where you're at. So, so Hernan Losada out in Montreal after a year, and now you wonder. You're sitting there and you're wondering, all right, now has Hernan Losada turned himself into an unhirable individual? So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, food for thought. Daniel Radford was VAR for 2 matches that we know here in the Atlanta footprint, Dallas and Philadelphia, the 3-2 Philly game, by the way. And Alex Chilowitz was the 4th last night. But the VAR discussion continues, especially in Major League Soccer. And apparently it happened yesterday. And like I said, I didn't get the chance to watch Champions League yesterday. But apparently in the FC Copenhagen Manchester United match, you had VAR, you had penalties, offsides, handballs, and people are calling this a meltdown. A meltdown for Manchester United. Erik ten Hag has blasted the refs and VAR for a harsh Marcus Rashford red. So literally, I mean, at this point, legitimately, at this point, this is where we are. We're to the point where Bart could have his own damn show about VAR on a daily basis. And while that's great for filling content and filling space, VAR down here on a daily basis, having VAR down here, I don't know if that's good or bad. Like I said, it's great for content creation and having stuff going on the network. But the fact that we would have VAR discussions, Rich is still Erik ten Hag out. Ten Hag criticized the first half red for Marcus Rashford, which the Manchester United coach said changed everything. Traditionally, that is true. Team surrendered a 2-0 lead to lose 4-3 against Copenhagen. United now bottom of Group A, 3rd defeat in 4 matches. And they have to win their next 2. Galatasaray in Istanbul later this month and Bayern Munich at Old Trafford in their final game to have any kind of a chance to try to get into the round of 16. 2 Rasmus Højlund goals. Rashford sent off through VAR in the 42nd minute after a foul on Elias Giller. Caught him on the shin with the sole of his boot, shown a red by Donatas Rumsas. Ten Hag called the decision harsh, but if you're catching a player with the studs, that's going to lean into that. Tom says, again, his 2 key VAR fixes: rewrite some of the rules to match the technology and centralize reviews like the NHL. Second one, absolutely. Right there with you. I think that with the headquarters, the VAR headquarters being here in Atlanta, as far as I know, it's still here in Atlanta, so at least they're getting closer to that step and having that implemented the entire time. But I think that, what we need, and this is me stomping my feet here. I think what we need in these situations is you need goal line technology. Here in the States, at the very least, you need goal line technology like we have in the Premier League. You need to have Cyclops. You need to have the technology under the surface. You need to have all those kinds of things. But you also need to have individuals who are not afraid to make the call that they're supposed to make attached to the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game are the problem, like the offside call, which I know that we get into a lot here, instead of making it, one thing on, it's one thing off. It's if one part of the body is off, you're off, flip it. If one part of the body is on, you're on. Something like that. Something as simple as that. Just flip the rule of engagement. But across the board, you need the Cyclops technology. You need all of the sensors to figure things out. You need individuals who will monitor it appropriately in looking forward and looking at the rules of the game. Morning, Ropes. Morning to Chicago as well. And you have to look at these things and monitor them appropriately. You've got to have folks that know the rules. You have to have folks that are going to administer the rules the way that they're supposed to be done. Yeah, and Tom, I think, Tom, that sounds like instead of one thing on, one thing off, you're off, I think that's one thing on, you're on. Take the arms and legs out, make it only about the shoulders. But you got to have folks who are confident in the application of the rules process. You've got to have folks that have to know the technology and know how to draw and use it if you're going to do the pitch technology to figure out offside, X, Y, and Z axes and all that kind of stuff. You got to have folks confident to draw. You've got to have folks that know the rules of the game, and they are confident in their administration of the rules of the game. Because if you don't have these confident individuals, you're going to have folks who are looking for something. And that's the other thing. You've got to have a time limit. You've got to have a time limit in looking at calls, because I think it's safe to say the longer that you're looking at a call, the more you're looking for something. You're looking for some kind of a justification for the call to go one way or the other. I would say 2 minutes. If you can't find something in 2 minutes, then you haven't found it. And so then you got to move on. Legitimately. If you haven't found anything, I still think you're looking for something, which to me means that you haven't found it and you got to move on. So time limit, I think, is also a part of this as well. Ten Hag says the red card changed everything. We then conceded 2 goals before halftime that never should have counted. First was offside. Their player was stood in front of Onana, and the penalty for the second was very debatable. The red card was harsh. Rashford went for the ball, but the referee had such a long time to make it a red card. When you freeze it, it always looks worse, to the discussion we were having with Philadelphia, New England. They took so long to make a red card out of it. Very disappointed with the decisions. Game was never meant to be like this. Decisions have to be made. Wrong decisions can be made, but 3 such tough decisions went against us. United have now lost 9 of 17 in all competitions this season. 9 of 17. First time in European competition, the Red Devils lost a game when leading by multiple goals, having won 78 and drawn twice. Ten Hag said the players will soon get the break he believes their performance deserves. Quote, it's clear. Very disappointed because we play very good. We started the game so well, our best minutes of the season, but the squad is resilient the whole season. So many decisions are against us, but every time there is spirit and fight, we'll keep going and it will turn in our favor. Football's a game of mistakes. We didn't do everything right. Even with 10 men, we dictated the game. We didn't do everything, but we did many things right. Hutch is saying integrate the technologies with AI for a first cut review. So you're staring at that as well. So yesterday, the 28th is the next round. So the Tuesday after Thanksgiving is when the rubber meets the road for Manchester United. Yesterday, Arsenal 2-0 win, big favorite. Bayern Munich a 2-1 win, big favorite. Copenhagen at a plus 338 got the win. PSV favored at home beat Lens. Real Madrid big favorite at home beat Braga. Inter favored on the road beat Salzburg. Napoli and Union Berlin is probably the result of the day, the 1-1 draw. And Real Sociedad favored at home beat Benfica. We've got Europa League today. We'll get into that coming up in just a little bit. Standings and what to watch and gossip, rumor, and innuendo before Kaylor Hodges joins us at 10 o'clock to talk USL. Group A, Bayern Munich's off and running. And I think they need basically they're 8 points clear with 2 to go. So I think Bayern Munich has clinched Group A. Now the fun starts. Copenhagen, Galatasaray, Manchester United all separated by 1 point. Group B. Arsenal 4 points ahead of PSV, and Lens, PSV's ahead on goal difference. It's 9 points for Arsenal, 5 for the other two. Sevilla's at 2 points. Looks like they're heading to Europa League. But they've got to get that third spot. Might be Lens. Group C, Real Madrid, 5 points clear, 2 matches to go in the group stage ahead of Napoli. Napoli's at 7 points. They're 4 points clear of Braga. Union Berlin got their first point in the group stage, but they're 2 points behind Braga with 2 matches to go. Group D, Real Sociedad and Inter are tied at 10 points apiece. They're going through in Group D with 2 matches to go. Now it's up to Salzburg and Benfica to figure out who's going to go into Europa League. Group E is a mess. Atleti, Lazio, Feyenoord, 8, 7, and 6 points. Celtic, 1 point. They've given up 12 goals in 4 games. Group F, Dortmund, PSG, AC Milan, Newcastle, 7, 6, 5, 4. 2 matches to go. Group G, Manchester City, 3 points up on Leipzig. They're advancing. Now it's up to Red Star and Young Boys to figure out who's going to Europa. Group H, Barca, Porto, 9 points each. The big win for Shakhtar puts them at 6 points. Pretty much solidifies them at the very least for Europa League. Because Antwerp would need to win and make up a massive goal difference. But Shakhtar's next match is with Antwerp, and Barcelona and Porto play next in 3 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks. So Shakhtar could be a part of this discussion heading into the last match day. Very, very interesting. Very, very cool. Congrats on them. And if you haven't had the chance to see it, I'm going to say subtle plug for the documentary that is on Shakhtar on Paramount+. Also, let's see if there's anything I'm missing on the board when it comes to any kind of news. Keep an eye on this. From Maxi Puglisi, who follows River Plate. Atlanta United, Chicago Fire interested in David Martinez. Already been contact between the parties. Offer expected to arrive in January. The defender welcomes a chance to go to MLS. So keep an eye on David Martinez and Atlanta United. So Chicago Fire and Atlanta United. All right. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Let's see. Kaylor Hodges joining us in 6 minutes. We'll get through all this stuff and get you through the matches of the day with Europa League and Europa Conference League. Since today is a Thursday, we're still in the group stage. And you've got like 9 gazillion matches, so we'll try to get the highlights here in Europa. 12:45 and 3 o'clock is when the matches are. You can catch them all on Paramount+. Make sure you have your remote handy or just watch Golasso Show. Brighton at Ajax, favored. Royal Union at Lusk, favored. Villarreal, minus side at Maccabi Haifa, favored. Bayer Leverkusen, favored. Big favorite at Karabag at 12:45. Ren favored against Panathinaikos. Servette favored, hosting our friends from Sheriff Tiraspol. Slavia Prague is a home dog with AS Roma coming to town. Toulouse and Liverpool. Toulouse is a massive underdog at a plus 650. 3 o'clock. AEK, our friend Matias Almeida, going up against Marseille, favored at home. Atalanta, big favorite against Sturm Graz. Betis, big favorite against Aris. Freiburg, massive favorite at home against TSC. Haken and Molde, they're thinking draw. Rangers on the minus side hosting Sparta Prague. Sporting, big favorite at home hosting Rakov. And West Ham, big favorite at home hosting Olympiacos. So that's your Europa League today. And Europa Conference League is also today. Once again, 11 gazillion matches. 10:30, by the way, because it's at Astana in Eastern Russia. FC Astana is hosting our friends from Balkani, Azerbaijan. That was where I was trying to, the Russian Republic. So it's in Azerbaijan at 10:30 this morning. They're favored at Balkani hitting the road. 12:45. Besiktas favored at home. Fiorentina favored on the road. Big favorite at Kukarički. Ferencvaros big favorite at home. Eintracht Frankfurt massive favorite on the road at HJK. 12:45. Legia Warsaw favored at home. Nordsjælland favored at home. PAOK Salonika big favorite against Aberdeen at a plus 765. Victoria Pilsen a plus 120, hosting Dinamo Zagreb. 3 o'clock. Villa, big favorite at home against AZ Alkmaar. That's your Georgi Mihailovic sighting. Ghent, big favorite on the road at Breidablik. Club Bruges, big favorite at home against Lugano. Fenerbahce, favorite on the road at Ludogorets in Hungary. Ljubljana, favorite at home against Klaksvik, our buddies from the Faroe Islands. Lille, favorite on the road at Slovan Bratislava. Maccabi Tel Aviv against Zorya Luhansk, favored on the road. So those are your big matchups for today when it comes to I think it might be the same Martinez chasing 2 years ago, Alex. We'll keep an eye. Also on the thought patterns this morning, it's what to watch, where to watch it, and all that kind of stuff. And I know I've got to read a promo, so we'll see what happens here. So today's gossip, be nice if I could actually click a button and it would give me today's gossip. Eberici Eze, close to a new deal, $100,000 a week at Crystal Palace. Once again, it's about controlling the asset because Eze will be a desired individual in the attack. It's from the four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Bayer Leverkusen insists that Florian Wirtz will not leave in January. Managing director Simon Rolfs denying Liverpool already have made an £85 million bid. Jadon Sancho expected to leave Manchester United in January. That's from Fabrizio Romano. No surprise. Eddie Howe keen to boost his midfield with Calvin Phillips and Al Hilal's Ruben Neves fitting the bill. Chelsea and Liverpool have shown interest in Real Betis' 18-year-old forward Asane Diao in January. Mikel Arteta looks to sell 4 players in January to raise funds needed to sign Ivan Toney. Four-letter paper, Manchester United limited to low-cost or loan deals in the January window amid ongoing uncertainty over the ownership. Real Madrid do not plan to sign Kylian Mbappe, even if he decides not to extend his contract with PSG and leave for free next summer. Spurs, that's from Cadena Ser, by the way. Spurs interested in re-signing Marcus Edwards, who came through their academy, now plays for Sporting Lisbon. Chelsea also interested. Chelsea, Argentina, forward Hernan Crespo set to become the new head coach at Al Ain. Nuno fired in that league, in the Saudi league. Bayern Munich rival Arsenal in their pursuit of the 24-year-old Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. Barcelona sticking with their manager Xavi despite recent dip in form. And 31-year-old midfielder Casemiro is a January target for the Saudi Pro League. That's your gossip, rumor, and innuendo for the day, which means it's 10 o'clock Eastern, which means is our gossip button. We can always do gossip down here. That's the easy thing. We can always do the gossip. Always do the gossip. All right, what to watch? What to watch and where to watch it? All right, so our friends at Soccer America also see, and this is the thing. When you clear all the cookies out on your computer and you have to re-sign into everything, all right, here's the deal. Men's college tournament, it's the Mid-American Athletic at 1 o'clock, the Horizon at 1, the Mid-American Athletic again at 1, Horizon at 4. American at 4:30 on the men's side, Ace and the American also at 8. Mentioned all the Europa League, all the Europa Conference League. That's on Paramount Plus. The Brasileiro also has 4 matches. Corinthians, Goiás and Santos, doubleheader at 5, doubleheader at 6. Bahia, Cuiabá, Botafogo, and Grêmio. So a lot of it is European stuff today. And so since it is 10 o'clock Eastern time, hour number 2 starts here on your Thursday with this guy, Kaylor Hodges. And Kaylor's ready to go. Kaylor, obviously, we have to start things off by discussing the League One final in the Dogwood Derby. We had John Bradford on in hour number 1 as his tour of all of the media continues. Yep. But it goes all the way to the end, and North Carolina FC gets promoted in a way.
I mean, they won promotion. They were getting promoted anyway, but they won it. Yeah. They won it. This is the pro rel at home situation, you know. Yes. Look, it was fun. This is what we kept coming back to on the USL show on Tuesday, was that this was just fun. Like we were watching it, and it was definitely one of those things of, these are 2 really good offenses. The attacks for these 2 teams are incredible. But the first 90 minutes, it felt like neither team wanted to make the mistake to give up the goal. Neither team wanted to really commit fully, because if they committed to their attack, they would maybe give up a goal. And ended up just kind of being a cagey match that was still fun to watch. It's not like it was a boring watch by any means. And then you get a goal for Charlotte, and you're thinking, oh man, this is, you know, you kind of hate this for North Carolina. Charlotte really does have the magic touch. And then one of the best center back hold-up plays I've seen in a long time from a corner, and then kind of just gets passed back, and then shot taken. And honestly, one of the most heartbreaking equalizing goals, Pack, who had been easily the best goalkeeper in the league, gets credited with an own goal in the dying minutes of the match to force it to penalties. You look at Pack and you just say, could this get any more poetic or tragic than the best goalkeeper in the league giving up an own goal? That's not really an own goal. I understand that it is, but just bouncing off the frame, off of your back when there's nothing you can do. It's not like you kicked it into your own net.
Yeah.
It just bounces off of you and it goes in, and it's so tragic. And then Brooks on with one of the better penalty saves, tipping it onto the bar. I mean, it was just fun. I've gone back and watched it a couple of times, just that penalty shootout, just because it was just a fun match.
And, you know, you look at, I mean, I know that we're going to focus on North Carolina FC, but when you look at from 30,000 feet, the season in USL League One in general, now that North Carolina FC is leaving, but you're bringing more folks in, and you're going to continue to have 12, I think, next season. When you look at what we saw in USL League One, what sticks in your mind from the whole?
It kind of continues to be the same story that it's been since year one, and that League One is utter chaos.
Not right.
League One is just utter chaos. I had the horrible take that Omaha was going to miss the playoffs at the halfway point of the season.
Boy.
I said that this was going to be the year. I felt like they had no identity, and I'm not going to say to be fair, but at the point they didn't. And then they go off a 14 unbeaten run.
Yeah, I know.
What? I mean, it's ridiculous. You have teams like Fuego who, you know, were kind of a laughing stock, and I hate to say it, but they did deserve it. They absolutely deserved it for what was going on.
Right.
And now they bring in Jermaine Jones. Chaos.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we did a presser with him, and he's incredible.
Oh yeah.
I fully am invested into the Fuego project going forward. You look at Forward Masson, they made the splashes to get into the playoffs, and their defense was incredible. But in this league, it feels like defense doesn't matter. Like when your Golden Glove winner is giving up almost a goal a game, it just shows you that defenses don't matter in this league until you get to the U.S. Open Cup, where League One loves to have a field day because The league is stupid, and it's so much fun. I watch every single League One match because you never know what you're going to get. It is just a blast to watch, and that's kind of my takeaway, as it always is every single year.
Okay. Breaking news. After what we saw yesterday in Tampa with some of the rearrangement of folks with their announcement, Robbie Nielsen has been named the new head coach of Tampa Bay. Literally, this has just happened, so your timing here is absolute karmic, sir. Robbie Nielsen has signed a multi-year contract to take the helm, according to Vice Chair Brian Auld. 350 matches coached at Hearts and at Dundee United in the Premiership, and the team that I don't mention in the English football pyramid because they decided to leave the town for the team that I support as one of my trusts, turn into a different name 30 miles away from town, and so I don't mention them. But yes, Hearts and Dundee United. Hearts and Dundee able to achieve the highest winning percentage of any head coach in either club's history, 58.8% of his matches at Hearts, 57.1% at Dundee United. The press release has a paragraph, a couple of sentences about Robbie being happy to be there. Began his head coaching career 2014 at Hearts, where he appeared in over 200 matches during a 10-year tenure, led Hearts to a Scottish championship title, earning promotion. Nielsen, the first of his 3 Scottish Manager of the Year nominations. Nielsen guided Hearts to a 3rd place in league to qualify for Europa. 2 years at the team that I'm not going to mention in the English pyramid. It returns to Scotland to take over Dundee United for the 18-19. And another paragraph of Nielsen being happy that he's taking over in Tampa Bay. So Robbie Nielsen is the new manager for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Breaking news on the USL segment on SDH this morning.
That's an interesting one to me. It's not the most shocking, I guess, because you have Tampa Bay, who has gone through Scotland before, I guess, with Neil Collins.
Right.
And I wonder if what they saw out of Collins or Nielsen kind of fits the same mold of system that they are wanting to go for. That would be kind of where my brain goes. I mean, you also had Nicky Law, who granted from England, but also went through the Scottish pyramid at some point too. I don't know the front office. I know the front office of Tampa Bay is also the Rays and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know what the Scottish connection is there. I wish I did know, but there is clearly a connection because their last 3 managers now have gone through some kind of Scottish pyramid, whether it be coaching or playing. So clearly there's a Scottish system that they are enjoying. I guess that kind of physical brand of footy and just kind of it's not a possession based, but it's not necessarily just press the crap out of you either. It's very much hard nosed with tackle hard, win the ball back hard, and break fast to goal. That's kind of what you see out of Scottish football. And I wonder if that's kind of what they just want to continue their brand to be.
Side note, in USL League One, Brooklyn Football Club has unveiled their club identity and logos and things ahead of their 2025 season. So that is out as well this morning. You're having a banner morning here with all of the breaking news in League One and USL Championship, sir.
I feel like I'm not the right person for this.
What I also wanted to do this morning is get into USL Championship, because the championship is coming. As you have coined it, and if you guys don't jump on that for gear, then we will.
So a little bit extra on Robbie Nielsen. I just want to because I'm just looking at this now because I wasn't expecting that. Robbie Nielsen, while at Hearts, was definitely running the 5 at the back system that Tampa Bay has gone with in the past. This last year, they went to more of a 4 back, but I wouldn't be shocked if they go back to that. It looks like Hearts likes to play with a fluid 4 to 5 back system, which kind of fits what this roster is doing. And Tampa Bay is bringing back basically everybody on their roster. almost every single person is coming back. So it looks like it's just going to be a continuation of the same system that they've done in the past.
Okay. The championship, sir.
Yes, the championship, the championship squared, as my students are learning about right now. Look, this one's great. I am super excited. The biggest thing we have here is you have two teams that weren't supposed to be here. These are worst of first stories, and it's super exciting. And it's the same thing I think we talked about last week with Charlotte, with North Carolina, with now Phoenix and Charleston. It's crazy what happens when you invest in your club. It's absolutely crazy what happens. And we see this a lot. We see teams say, we're going to give our manager full faith and then start signing players on his behalf as opposed to just giving them the wheel. Juan Guerra went and got his guys. Formella is a guy who came from Oakland and comes over in the middle of the season, which what were the Roots thinking? Anyway, they go get Armanakis. You go over to Charleston, not as much wheeling and dealing during the season, but they get Segbers and they completely revamp that team. Both these teams said, we trust our manager. You are either going to live on the sword or die by the sword, pretty much. Yeah. And if you screw this up, you have to fall on it. And guess what? They haven't. Charleston has had players like Arturo Rodriguez has been absolutely crazy. Yakaza has been my personal MVP of the playoffs. Yakaza for Charleston has been the best player to me, but Arturo Rodriguez is making a real push for that. Right. And then you're looking at Phoenix, who you say, which attacker do you want to give the credit to? Is it Formella? Is it Quesho? Are you going to maybe look at Danny Trejo? Arteaga is a guy who was their most goals, I think, this season on the bench for them now. Armanakis is, starting on that right-hand side. They have so much attacking talent to play with, and they can rotate them all around. You can have Danny Trejo play on the left. You can have him play up top. You can have Formella play up top or play as a 10. You can rotate everyone around. And then, you look at this Charleston side, and the thing that Charleston does best, and I'm always impressed with, they force you to play the game that you hate. Mm-hmm. They manage to, their system is whatever you don't like. It's always so much fun to watch. If you're a team that wants to counterattack, if you're a team that wants to lose possession, press the ball and go, they'll say, okay, here's the ball, have it. You can't do anything with it. If you're a team that wants to hold possession and do that, they're going to press you and hold it themselves. They won't let you touch it. They are so good at forcing you to play the game that you hate. This is going to be a really fun cat and mouse game between the two.
All right, let's do this. Rich Ransom doing our work for us while you and I are talking about other things in USL Championship as our segment started. So the timing was impeccable. Our friends at Ricardo Silva knew that we were talking USL. So not a Miami Football Club, but the Miami Football Club has announced the departure of head coach Louis Neal after the completion of the 2023 season. Miami would like to thank Neal and wish him all the best moving forward in his future endeavors. Thank you, Rich.
I'm not shocked. I mean, that said, Miami is my slam the head on the table team. They have every talented player that you could ever want. They have every block that you could want. You can talk yourself into they are going to win the league every year until you remember that they are the trademark Miami FC. I'm not shocked, but the sacking of managers and just saying, hey, this is your fault. At some point, there has to be a conversation of what's the culture like there, because managers can build culture, but also front offices have to do it too. I don't want to be that harsh on people who are just working there, like your communications people, which have been incredible, your, operations people, but there needs to be some looking at each other at the very top of the room, because they've gone through managers like they're going out of business. They've had all the talent in the world, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to look at yourself.
Yeah. So getting, so does Phoenix have the right now to annex the state of California when it comes to the USL Championship?
I think they're a little bit upset that this final is not in California at this point. I don't know how much more north you can go. I don't know what the next biggest city north of Sacramento is. I'm sure somebody can tell me.
Visalia Redding, I think, is what you're looking at. Yeah.
So they're going to take on some poor League Two team to win the championship. Whatever.
Yeah. Just don't take on Ballard. All right. Just don't cross over the state line and go into Washington State or Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah. They hate California, and they just take on. We said it before. They take on this villain role so well, and it is just so much fun to watch. In some way, and it's been kind of coming out with the Phoenix, from the Phoenix side, that the travel is starting to wear on them.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a part of it of it's just a part of the routine now. We get up, we train in Phoenix, we fly. Like, I'm not saying that the travel is good. I'm not saying that they would rather travel than stay at home, but in a weird way, they're becoming accustomed to this. And if there's any team that kind of back going into Charleston, Phoenix is one of them. And I don't want to get into any kind of predictions quite yet, because I'm sure you have other questions. But
well, I mean, I do want to go through finalists and things like that and see how you guys at the USL show compare and contrast to the finalists in USL Championship. You give me a prediction now, that's fine.
I take Phoenix. I was the only person on the USL show to take Phoenix, which caused a small uproar out in Arizona.
Not the kind of man to toot your own horn, but toot.
Yeah, I'm the only one to take Phoenix. Everybody else says Charleston's going to win, and a lot of it comes down to they're at home. Charleston is playing a good team, yes, or playing as a good squad right now. Fidel Barajas is not going to be there, which you would think is a big deal, but also Tristan Traeger has been his equal this year. I don't think it's a big deal at all that Barajas isn't there. I don't think it matters. I think Tristan Traeger and Markanich has been just as good over there. The difference is that Fidel Barajas is about to shatter every single transfer record ever. But that I take Phoenix. I think the way that they can rotate their attack is really fun. I think Harvey has been a stud in that midfield, and something that we don't really see on the East Coast that the West Coast is a little bit more accustomed to is the goalkeeper that can play as an outfield player. Yeah. Rios Novo, as people in Atlanta very well know, he is a proper sweeper keeper who is just as good with the ball at his feet as almost any midfielder in the USL. He is just that good on the ball. And everybody says, well, look at his mistakes. If we're being honest, Rios Novo's the mistakes this year have been center backs playing him a bad ball or not giving him an outlet. They screw him over. Every other time, he is rock solid. And I think that Charleston can play to it, but they're not as used to it as Western Conference teams because they have to deal with Coque Vegas. They have to deal with, Rios Novo. I really enjoy watching Phoenix. I think that they have what it takes to offer to beat this team. I am taking Phoenix here, much to the dismay of everybody else that I'm going to get messages about. Ben Clemens, if you're watching this is for bullying me on my haircut. This is your fault.
All right. All right. So now here's to add more fuel to the fire. Oh, by the way, your Thanksgiving side dishes for this particular match. Phoenix Rising is a dog going into Patriots Point at a plus 181. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 237, and Charleston is a plus 135. So,
if you're looking for one last note of this game, I beg you to look at the sidelines and check out what the managers are wearing, because Juan Guerra, the most attractive manager in U.S. sports, and then you have Ben Pierman with some of the best shoe game you've ever seen. So, just the fashion on the sideline is going to be impeccable.
Okay, so Ewan brings this up, and I want to bring this up as a bridge conversation. The new TV deal,
Yes.
with USL and Paramount pantheon of networks. Ewan's asking, with the CBS deal, can we expect massive broadcast improvements in the USL? Don't know.
I would say it kind of depends on what you're considering to be improvements. Okay. Because maybe we said on here, maybe this was the USL show, everything blends together. But there's only so much you can do with Cashman. There's only so much you can do with baseball fields, right? There's only so much. But I think what you're looking at the CBS deal, and I don't know if John has posted this, but I'm going to kind of just say it and hope that he has. 90% of USL matches this year or this upcoming year are going to be broadcasted for free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's going to be good in of itself. This is a higher broadcasting deal with CBS. If you remember, if people are new to the USL, the jump from YouTube to ESPN, the broadcasting went way up, right? The quality went sky high. Now, will the jump from ESPN to CBS, which they're still on ESPN, but will that ESPN to CBS jump be as big? Probably not, because we went from YouTube streams to ESPN streams, right?
Vista, yeah.
But I think you're going to see more of a jump. I think the biggest thing that you're going to see is now we have a bigger pool of broadcasters to pull from. So you're going to have more neutral national broadcasts as opposed to everything being a regional. I think that's going to be a big jump in of itself, where this is pure speculation on my part, but I think with the CBS deal plus the ESPN deal, they're going to be working together. You're going to have playoff matches, probably the entirety of at least the championship, be national / like neutral broadcast and not local. I think that is a huge deal. I think you're going to see improvements, maybe not in the ways that like you're going to get like 4K cameras or suddenly these new angles. That's probably not going to be the case, but I think you're going to see massive jumps in improvements. Also, with the investment of people discovering the USL, you're going to have more money coming into those teams, which they can put more money into their broadcasting.
So we'll see what happens, especially with the relationship that these leagues have with Vista Communications down in South Florida, and that's the head end for the hub for all of the outbound broadcasts that we currently see on the Plus. Okay, now the USL Championship, what they decided to do over on their .com is they listed all the finalists for all of the big awards. What I wanted to do with you to wrap up this week is look at their finalists, get your selection / the USL show selections, and if there is a choice D, and I know in one category there is a choice D, go ahead and introduce this and defend your position, sir. So let's start off with the Keeper of the Year, Blanchett, Steinwasser, and Danny Vitiello, or a choice D.
I mean, it's this one's hard. I think they got the finalist right. I think the finalists are bang on. Blanchett, Vitiello, and Steinwasser were the best goalkeepers in the league. I think there is a conversation for Rios Novo, but I think they nailed it. I think Vitiello is going to win. I wouldn't have voted there. I would have gone Steinwasser, but I think Vitiello is going to win. I think people are going to see the lack of goals scored against, and I think that's more of a backline stat personally, but I think he's going to end up winning. But I think they got the final three correct.
Vitiello 0.86 goals against in Sacramento, Steinwasser with Detroit City, and Paul Blanchett in Oakland. Defender of the Year, Connor Donovan and Jack Gurr in Sacramento, or Arturo Ordonez in Pittsburgh.
Ordonez was really, really good this year. I think that if I were to add a D selection, I would probably go Devin Amu-Mensah from Detroit City. But I think you're looking at Donovan or Gurr. Now, this is personal bias. I would have voted Donovan because I think Defender of the Year, my brain just says that's a center back. And I understand from the right or left back position, you can be a good defender. I'm not saying they can't. But when I think defender, I think center back. I would go Donovan, but chances are people are going to see, again, the scoring and passing output. I think it's going to go to Jack Gurr. Not upset with that whatsoever, but I think people are going to get caught up in attacking numbers and not defensive numbers.
Coach of the year, Mark Briggs, Sacramento, Bob Lilly, Pittsburgh, Ben Pierman, Charleston, or a choice D?
Man, I think the right answer is going to be Bob Lilly. I think that's the correct answer.
Mhm.
You don't win the players what is it? Is it the Players Shield? I always forget. You don't win it without being a heck of a coach. And the way he's pulled that team together when we thought they had zero talent was incredible. I think that Pierman's going to win it because he's kind of the sexy name in the USL right now. I think people are going to see what Pierman did with the big point jump. I think the right answer is Bob Lilly, but I think Pierman's going to win it.
What about styling and profiling Juan Guerra out of Phoenix?
Juan Guerra is a good shout, but really they kind of got hot at the end. I think when you're looking at Coach of the Year, personally, I think it's a full season award and not look at the way they turned it around, because you never know if it was a player being hurt. A coach can't just suddenly get a player feeling better, or, you never know what's kind of going on there and that kind of stuff. So I look at the whole season for that.
All right, Young Player of the Year. This one's probably a slam dunk. Barajas, Rios Nova, and Rita Zuhir out of San Antonio.
This is where I'm more mad at the voting process. You only get one vote. It's not like a top 3 vote. Fidel Barajas should win. He is going to be the winner. That is 100% the case. My personal bias, I will put my Legion hat on and say I am biased. I understand that. But Matthew Corcoran is 17 years old and is about to start for the U.S. Youth National Team in the U17 World Cup, and he's not a finalist. And that's not necessarily the fault of anybody, because the voting system is you only get one vote. This is your guy. But the fact that someone who is about to start for the U.S. Youth National Team in a World Cup is not a finalist, that drives me up a wall. But it should be Barajas.
Player of the Year, finalists announced, and so I think that's coming out this weekend. Winners announced this weekend on Sunday. Cicerone, Sacramento, Albert Dikwa in Pittsburgh, Cal Jennings, local ties here to the Atlanta area, in Tampa Bay, or Danny Trejo, Phoenix Rising, or a choice E, Player of the Year?
Jack Gurr.
What I thought you were going to do.
I'm so sick of Player of the Year just being who scored the most goals. I'm so sick of it. And I will put my hands up and say biased. If you ask almost every team who was your MVP of the season, almost everybody's going to point to you a defender. Everybody's going to say this defender was the reason we won this championship. This player in the back line was the reason. Last year, I would have voted Tainer. Last year, I would have voted Almu Mensah if he was healthy. This year should have been Jack Gurr. People saw the scoring stats and say, this is the most valuable player, but it's Jack Gurr. He was the best player this season, and it drives me up a wall that he wasn't even a finalist. Did I expect him to actually win it? But I thought at least somebody would say, yeah, he deserves to be a finalist. Just that one drives me crazy.
And Rhode Island FC has announced their wicked good mascot, Chip the Harbor Seal.
Sure.
It looks pretty cool.
It does look pretty cool. I will say the 2 signings that they have made, Flynn and Koke, are incredible. What Connor Smith has going on up there, if he can build even a somewhat decent lineup around those 2 players, let alone if they can continue to make splashes like that, Rhode Island is going to be contending next year.
Yep, and we get to learn from Michael Parkhurst on a bi-weekly basis about what's going on up there at Bryant / their new building. All right, what's going on at the USL show?
Hey, next week we have our final show of the season. We're starting the process of the history of the USL, which is going to be fun, and we're in the process of figuring out what is going to be essentially a tactics week or a tactics episode of players coming on and talking about their most recent game on what they talked about. Nothing confirmed on that, but it's something that it is in the process. It's in the weeds. And it may not be weekly, but it'll at least be like a bi-weekly, monthly kind of thing. So we're super excited about that.
Kaylor Hodges at the USL show, and Kaylor's coming back, and bring back as many folks as humanly possible this time next week, and we'll put a bow on the championship, anything else on your mind, and we'll just keep rocking and rolling. Thanks for hanging out as always. Nice haircut.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Be good. That's Kaylor, and so it's good to catch up with him about the championship, and having two pieces of breaking news while the segment was going on. So very, very cool. Ewan, to your question, I think that especially for the big ticket items on USL Championship and League One, when you get to the later games in the schedule and things like that, it will be a big CBS production. You probably won't have as many cameras, but you think of how things are with, say, like the NWSL productions that you see on big CBS, those kinds of things, the remotes. I think this weekend might be a good indicator for how things may look, because of if you see what you're going to see with the NWSL final, with all the programming on Golasso, all the lead in, all that kind of material, I think that's what you're staring at, probably with the USL programming when that comes to the fore as well. So really looking forward to seeing how it rolls out on the Paramount Pantheon of networks. And to Kaylor's point, you're going to have a lot of games on not quite as large a subscription TV, but, Paramount Plus, Golasso, those kinds of things, you'll be able to see it in all those different places. And good work by the USL. We'll try to track down Jeremy Allenbaugh and see what life is like for him with all of these different announcements as we go forward. But big news for the USL Championship, League One. And looking forward to seeing how it continues to grow and what other news we get to stumble across on a weekly basis when it comes to USL Championship. And it's been really fun to have Kaylor and our friends from the USL show come on to break everything down this week, every week, especially in the postseason, as we've been getting close to the postseason, things like that, having them come on at 10 o'clock on Thursdays in the Eastern time zone. So very, very cool that we've been able to break things down in the second and third division here in the U.S. soccer and the U.S. soccer groupings. Niko Moreno coming up in just a little bit, and we will have Niko's thoughts on what's going on across the landscape in Major League Soccer. I know we're going to talk about VAR. We got to talk about Philly, New England. We got to talk about all these other things. We got to talk about how the matchups are laid out and how it looks as we have going forward. Another piece of news really quickly. Liga match between Marseille and Lyon postponed after Lyon's bus was stoned, leaving Fabio Grosso with facial cuts. Will be played in Marseille December 6th. Date was already known, but not the venue. The match was called off hours before kickoff after Grosso was hit in the head by the projectile, shattered the window of the team bus. LFP's competitions committee said it opted to play the match at the Stade Velodrome following information and guarantees provided by the Bouches-du-Rhône prefecture, basically the cops. Ruling didn't specify whether fans would be allowed, but on Wednesday, the French football governing body's disciplinary committee announced that it would not be taking any disciplinary action as the incidents had occurred on the public highway and not at the ground. Lyon responded today that it would appeal the decision, deeming it incomprehensible, saying it showed unequivocally that the LFP is no longer responsible. Club said it would not let these unacceptable events go unchallenged. Disciplinary committee has also opened an investigation into racist chants and gestures made by Lyon fans in the stadium's visitors' car park. Decision expected on November 22. Lyon currently at the bottom of League 1. League 1. 4 points from 10 matches. Marseille are 9th. And so, once again, it's a combination of chaos and stupidity this morning across the board. Not necessarily a surprise. So we'll see what happens there. And I don't anticipate a whole lot changing. It's, once again, we'll lay it all out and we'll figure out how things are when it comes to folks and wanting to actually get things done and move the game forward in a progressive manner. And once again, waiting for Niko Moreno to hop in, and we'll break down everything that he's been able to see. There's been a couple of coaching changes. We'll get into the coaching changes, especially the ones that have been breaking, the one that broke this morning with Hernan Losada. We will catch up with Niko about that. I know that he was vocal at the hiring of Phil Neville in Portland. So we'll get his thoughts on that as well. And I'm sitting here trying to promote at the same time as we're waiting for him to get through. And so let's see. CC, Sports Pulso. CC, the Soccer Bar. Nothing like trying to do stuff on live TV. B. Let me see if I do this right. Because this morning, I'll tell you, I was trying to get something done this morning, trying to promote all the stuff that was going on the 280 character app, and it literally was taking me up to like 330 characters to get it all done. So when you guys got the releases this morning about the rundown of the show, it literally was 330 characters. And I had to trim like 50 characters to make sure that I was getting something done. But yeah, Ewan, to your point about the CBS deal, they may still be using Vista a lot. So what we're seeing from a production standpoint and from a housing standpoint and from an announcing standpoint still may be out of South Florida for a great deal of the conversation. So obviously we'll keep an eye on all of that. This weekend's going to be really fun. Actually, tomorrow, once again, let's go through traffic. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, Thomas Rongan is going to be on to discuss the movie, Next Goal Wins, and his ventures and sojourns and all the stories that are attached to it. So we'll catch up with him to start hour number 2. And obviously after that, we'll have the weekend whip around, hopefully joined by our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring at 9:30 as a bit of a lead into that. Get you ready for the weekend. Prem and Proper will be on the network, as well as our NWSL preview episodes. Maddie Cruz and Drew Dickinson contributing, as always, to Prem and Proper. They will give their points of view. Prem and Proper out tomorrow afternoon. NWSL preview out tomorrow afternoon. And it'll be great to see what Paramount does to blow up the NWSL Championship game out there at Snapdragon with the two teams that have made it to the final, Gotham and OL Reign. It's going to be really fun this weekend as well to keep an eye on that. Saturday and Sunday. Saturday afternoon. If you have nothing better to do, go to Emory. Go to Emory and catch some D3 playoff action, because it is Emory and it is Oglethorpe, and if they win, they play each other on Sunday afternoon to get into the Sweet 16 in Division 3. So if you have nothing better to do, you got some time on your hands waiting for everything else going on in Major League Soccer, go over to Emory, catch Emory, Brevard, Colorado College, and Oglethorpe, and we will proceed through the D3 playoffs as well. It's the last half hour of the show on Thursday, which means one thing. We get to check and see what cup of coffee Niko is on. So what cup of coffee are you on, sir? 2?
What is going on, John? ATL, SDH family. Happy to be here. This is number 2, but it should be number 3. Obviously, a little bit behind here today on schedule because my oldest son forgot his football bag. And I had to go all the way down to the high school, drop it off, trying to wait for him to run up these stairs. So I'm back, though. We are here, ready to go. Second cup of coffee, but I'm going to need to put another one on an IV bag or something, stick it to my yeah.
I just have this vision of an IV bag hovering behind you there on set, just like right over your right shoulder, and it just takes it intravenously.
I need one, man. It's Thursday, so I'm gonna be busy. So yes, I need to look for one and get it my way.
All right, let's work backward here. We've had another coaching change this morning. Aaron Losada out at CF Montreal. And we had an announcement a couple days ago, back on Tuesday, where now you have Phil Neville as the head coach in Portland for the Timbers. We can take them one at a time. Aaron Losada out in Montreal. That happened while we were doing the show this morning early on. Early thoughts about Aaron Losada out in Montreal?
I think it's a mistake. I think that it shows us that franchise inability to plan for a long-term process and give a coach, whether it's Nancy or whether it's Losada or whether it's whoever, have enough time to set a program, set a relationship with these players, see what young players can develop, provide an identity. And that's impossible when you are having this rotating door of coaches. And Losada, I thought he did a great job. I mean, he had this team close to the playoffs when there weren't many people that were thinking that that team could get as far as they did. And then is Will Nancy, ironically enough, who shuts that door right in front of the the club there at the end of the season. But all in all, I thought that, yes, there was ups and downs for Montreal, but at the end of the season, or even midway through, you could see what Losada was doing. He's a guy that, regardless of what you might think of him, and even me, I have my doubts about him. I'm not going to lie to you, but he is very determined. He's very sure of what he wants. He wants a flying team where everybody's running, everybody's pushing. He goes as deep as to what players are eating, what they're doing, culture-wise. So I thought he was a guy that if you gave him some time, if he earned the possibility to be there next year, he should have. And I thought he earned it. And even then, you decide to let him go. I just think it talks badly of a team that has not been able to keep absolutely anybody in that position.
All right, so let me walk through this and let me see if I'm wrong. And talk to me like I'm 6. So Aaron Losada is a dude that wants to do things a certain way. He's got a system. He demands a lot out of his players when it comes to their physical abilities, their endurance. I mean, there were the quotes about, hey, he's having us eating things, and here's what we can eat, what we can't eat. So he's a system guy, and he goes into a situation where it's square peg, round hole. You've got to have the opportunity to bring in your guys. Basically, he has his system. He has to impress it upon the current roster. There's only certain things you can do with this roster. And so he barely misses out on the playoffs with his system, not his players. You gut the roster, and then you don't give Losada the chance to work the roster the way that you want to get the players you need to work the system you have. And you're like, if you're Joey Saputo, it's just like, well, you didn't make the playoffs. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And if you had that expectation that you were delusional, and if you had that expectation that you didn't see the players that went in and out of this team, and you have to understand that there is a learning curve for players, a learning curve for the coach. You switch into a total different system that you were working with last season. So I just think it is unreasonable to think and set that expectation for him. And again, every single club takes some time to vet through, I don't know, let's say 5, 6, 7 candidates. You know what each one of those candidates have to offer. You knew what Losada had to offer, and you decided to bring him along. Then in I don't know, my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's because you like whether it's A, B of what he was doing or A and C, but you wanted to have that here. And again, he delivered to most of the season, so why not keep him? Does that say that you chose the wrong guy, that you basically spend a whole bunch of time thinking about bringing a coach and then you made the wrong decision? It all talks badly about Montreal as an organization, and that's it.
When you look at Joey Saputo, this fits his MO. It's like, I want instant results, and if you don't give me instant results, then you're gone. It's almost like, and this will be the Google search for today, kids, the relationship between George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin with the New York Yankees. Unfortunately, I don't think you're going to be seeing coaches continue to go back and be coaches for Joey Saputo, but it does make you wonder if you, and I will stipulate that, yes, Ernie Losada is a prickly man. He is a very prickly manager, and and that's just how he's wired. But what this does is it continues to have people ask themselves, do I want to be a part of any of that ish with the owner being who he is? Do I want to weigh the idea of being a head coach in Major League Soccer, dealing with the ish from the owner on a daily basis, or do I just want to go someplace where I can do what I want to do and I don't have to deal with all of that nonsense?
Absolutely. And again, look, this team even added some pieces late in the season that have to get used to what you're trying to coach. They had some good results, right? I thought Kopu was a very good acquisition, and you had to do a Duke deal. You had all these other players that were brought in and helped this team Lassiter. And at the end of the day, they adapted very quickly. And you have to say that's part of the coaching strategy. That's part of the coaching mentality. And you got these guys bought in what you wanted to do. Again, Columbus closed the door on you. Columbus is a top team. Columbus is over here playing the playoffs. So are you judging them on the 2-1 loss at the end of the season? Because that seems unfair, because he was obviously fighting out of their weight class and still was able to keep it close. So I just believe that Montreal really needs to figure out where they want to be, because everything that they've done, whether it was bringing Henry or bringing Lasada, just nothing seems to work long term. And that just doesn't talk well about a franchise. Simple as that.
All right, so then now let's go to the West Coast and the coaching hire and the press conference that you saw earlier in the week. There is now a Neville in Portland. It has been catching a lot of grief from a bunch of different angles, supporters groups. I know that you've been critical about the hire. For those who haven't had the chance to go down your social media and check in what you've been writing on the subject, what have these last couple of days been like for you with Neville now being in charge in Portland?
Yeah, I just think that there's been a lot of frustration, and understandably so, from fans, from that Timbers army that is as committed, invested in the team as any in the world. And they don't just want results on the field. They have a mentality of the values of the club, like every great supporting group does. And the fact that they've had to deal with so many domestic violence issues, how the team has handled it in the past with Andy Polo, with other players, with problems within the organization, and very sexist and inappropriate behavior as an organization. And you're going to bring in a guy that has some scandals of his own. I thought it was odd and it was unnecessary, because it's not like Phil Neville is coming in with this fantastic trajectory where he was unbelievable at Inter Miami and just showed you the display of soccer he could do, because he really didn't do that. And I thought he struggled many times just making simple decisions on formations, on how to put players in positions that they could perform, on handling the locker room. So with all that said, why take that gamble and not just go perhaps with a guy that's within the organization, right? They have some assistant head coaches. Leave the interim head coach and allow him to continue to build. And if you're going to go out of your way and get a guy from outside the organization, then get a guy that's worth it. Not just the name, not just the smokescreen of saying, look, we got Phil Neville, Manchester United, and he's Beckham's best friend. Whatever it is that you thought was going to be great about him, I just don't see it. I don't think he fits in with the type of players that they have. I don't believe that he fits in with what Gio Savarese kind of left, and even the interim head coach left. So now you're switching 180 degrees. You're going to want to do things differently. It's going to take some time. And when you have a team like the Timbers that has high expectations, that they've always been a team that is expected to be in the playoffs, I think you're in for some serious tough times ahead.
And we both know that that's unacceptable for Portland fans. When you mention tough times in Portland, that's unacceptable for them. Let me then. Who would you have? Who would you have had as your top contender there? Who would you, with those players they have on hand, with some tweaking in the winter window? Who were your contenders for that position that Phil Neville eventually took?
Ooh, that's a tough one, because I have a lot of guys from like South America. Fabian Bustos is a guy that I was kind of looking towards coming towards MLS. I think a guy like Juan Carlos Osorio would be very interesting. I would go that route. I mean, you have such dominant Latin, Hispanic locker room. You have a lot of these guys that have a lot of potential. So I think if you go with an experienced guy out of this league, you bring in not just a different methodological process about how you handle the game, but you also have a guy that's going to come in and understand and know how to handle a locker room with as many stars as you have, and you might be able to catch the league by surprise. I've always thought that whenever you bring in the right guy from abroad, it creates a different aspect of you as a team, and that's what Portland needed. I mean, they just needed a whole different way of looking at things, and now they're just recycling from the bin that Miami decided to just drop outside and never got picked up. So that's exactly why I believe that I would have gone and looked for a guy, whether it was South America or Liga MX, a guy that's experienced, that had a lot of real time as a head coach, and that could come and handle this locker room, and that could just turn it all around, because you saw that this team has the quality whenever they're playing in one direction, and there is no problems or animosity within the locker room. They showed moments of that at the end of the season once Giovanni Salvarez left. So I thought that's what they were going to do. But if there's something that Neville didn't show you, was that he was unable to handle really a locker room, to create something different, a culture. Otherwise, he would have remained. And not to mention the fact that he would be the guy that, I don't know if this is an ability to handle criticism, but many a times, how many times did we see him talk to the press the wrong way because he couldn't take the heat? If you can't take the heat in Miami, you better watch out, because in Portland, even in this particular press conference, they were asking all the right questions. Later down the line, whenever you're coming in frustrated from a bad loss or a bad result, Phil Neville better check himself before he wrecks himself.
10 games under 500 with a gutted roster in Miami before they brought in Tata Martino. We've had some playoff games happen over the last week. Niko Moreno hanging out with us from Pulso Sports in the Soccer Bar for his normal Thursdays with Niko visit after racing in from a rescue mission at the local high school. So that's always good stuff. Rave Green Mug on cup number 2. We've had some series close out. Purple Team closes out Nashville. Nashville apparently decided to leave their offense home starting basically the end of August, September, and or end of September. So let's say that end of September, October, November, the offense was basically told, nah, you guys can go on ahead and go watch college football on your Saturdays. Everything's cool. And then Philadelphia beats New England. We'll get into what happened there last night. But from the last week that was in the Major League Soccer playoffs, what are some of your big takeaways before we dive into specifics?
I just think Orlando keeps trucking along, and it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't amazing, and it wasn't fantastic soccer all throughout. But whenever you have a cagey team in front of you that is going to make things rough, I mean, those first 25 minutes of that game, I thought there was going to be at least 3 red cards. I mean, there was pushing, there was shoving, there was screaming. So it was played at a high intensity. You know, it kind of gave me Copa Libertadores feel there for a second. And you know, props to both teams for handling it that way. However, you said it. I think the real difference for Nashville was their inability to score, and their inability to, even in the moments where there were chances, just taking care of this. We talked about the Mukhtar dependency. If there's a guy that's going to make sure that he takes away your highway, your carpool to success, is Oscar Pareja. And that's what he did. He absolutely overpopulated the midfield. He was not allowing Mukhtar to get into service. Every time that he would get into service, he was really, really out wide, because I think if there was some of the issues that this team had was also they missed Dax in the first game. Dax in the second didn't look 100%. Shadowberg was another guy that did a lot for them in stretching defenses, and he wasn't available. So there was a lot going on for this Nashville team that was always limited on the defense, on the offensive end, and even more when you don't have certain guys. Now, I'm not making any excuses for a guy like Sam Surge that was supposed to be the savior of this team, that you brought him in to score goals. He didn't quite do that. Fafa Picol tried. He had the intensity. He had the intent to do a lot of things, but the finishing touches just quite weren't there. And on the other hand, Orlando with the press, with that midfield, that center midfield that gives you so much equilibrium, they just took advantage of things. easy goal. You cannot give Orlando an easy goal the way you did to Angulo, coming out from the back, making it easy for them. They get that first score early in the first half, and then it's over because then Austria could just manage the F out of this game. And he did. He managed it perfectly, and he has guys that can do it. And if you want to go in and get rough and with your chest out against this Orlando team, they got guys with like Araujo and like Cartagena, and even Facundo Torres was out there sticking out his chest. So Godoy wasn't able to do much in the midfield. I just thought Orlando handled it well. They were better at the end of the day, and the one goal was enough. So they keep trucking. They're a team that's looking pretty good just because of their ability to just win games.
So 2 questions, and they're both along the Nashville bit. Does Gary Smith stay? Has he earned another year? And does Hani stay, or does he go? Because we knew of Qatari interest. If I'm Hani, how frustrated am I about what's going on around me, or what is not going on around me? Do I jet? Do I stay? Do I hope that Nashville invests more resources around me because some of the investments this past season didn't work? What's your gut about what happens in Nashville now?
It's a very good question. I would be more inclined to say that Gary goes and not Mukhtar. I've seen him very vested in his team. He seems to like the city. He has a relationship with the club. He is the face of the franchise. So why leave? Why go elsewhere? Money aspects, yes, perhaps. But I think when you're in a league that is growing as MLS has, that has so many eyes upon it, in a city that, you have the keys to the city,
mm-hmm.
I don't really see a reason to leave, right? I do believe, and I do think that this team understands today that what they have isn't enough, and they're gonna have to get out there and build around Mukhtar and Sam Surge, because I think he'll stay. He showed you glimpses of what he can provide, but you just need to refresh. All my respect to Godoy, he's been a fantastic player. He needs some help. Dax, those wheels have been looking to fall off that bus for a very long time. It's time to renew that part of the field. Mule, love his attitude, love what he can provide, but he's what I would call a laborer. He's a guy that's going to give you a lot that you're going to be able to bring in, and he's going to do a lot of stuff, but he's not a guy that's going to be able to carry these teams. So you just need to replenish that midfield and go from there. I think the back line is pretty solid. You keep more. Maybe you go look for somebody else from Lovitz. You keep Zimmerman. I even like Willis. So you can keep that, build around that from the back line up and figure it out then. But I would think maybe Gary leaves. I think he's done a good job at keeping this boat afloat. But if you want to take the next step, maybe you go somewhere else. Maybe you bring in a guy that's a little bit more willing to just win games and change the schemes and be a little bit more of a gambler, and maximize your team in offense. Because defensively they've been great. The structure has been awesome, but they've always been a team that just seemed like it was one step behind other teams.
Kai Wagner was not present on the field for the match against New England for Philadelphia, which ended up being a clincher last night, 1-0. He will not be around on the roster, active roster, until a possible MLS Cup performance if Philadelphia makes it that far. He could go the way of Clint Dempsey in U.S. Open Cup if Philadelphia exits the season earlier than that. Wagner got 3 games for what he apparently said to Bobby Wood. What'd you think of that?
Hey, you know what? I think that we're in a day and age where you just need to watch what you say, and you know the rules, you understand them. You have to be able to just know better. In soccer, you will get instigated. That's part of the game. You're going to get pinched and told and whatever. They're trying to get you off your game. And if you give a reason to be out of the game and cost your team, talk to Miazga about costing the team for just not being able to keep,
that's the next topic,
a level head, then that's what it is. But in terms of this game, I was surprised that Philadelphia pulled a result just of how the game went. And it was crazy to me because it was the refs who were playing with 10 players. So they definitely miss Wagner. I mean, he gives them a different player that can get forward, that has the ability to change the game on his own. Bizio does good. He's a quality player, but he's just not Wagner. Carranza was missing in this one. You're missing that X factor, that finisher up top. But it wasn't the quality in front that I thought was missing from Philadelphia. It was just generating soccer and keeping possession. Again, this refs team was playing with 10 players for more than a half, and still they seem to be the more dangerous team. So that just talks about what Philadelphia needs to figure out, because it's just not working. If it wasn't for set pieces where they were very dangerous throughout the game, Philadelphia wouldn't have had much opportunities in front of goal. So I like that they switched the formation to the 4-4-2 diamond in this one. The three-man backline wasn't quite working, especially without Wagner. I get it. They had some possession, but it was so sporadic. And once they got pinned back, they gave the New England Revolution all of this space. I mean, in 2K, red card, it was New England who was in front. It was New England who was handling the business. Then, obviously, there's some setbacks because of that missing player. But once New England Revolution was able to figure it out, we saw Farrell giving you some real magic on that side, man. But look, I followed Farrell for a very long time, and I knew his skills as a center back on the ball. He's very good on the ball, but some of those sprints, some of that burst, man, he was looking fantastic out there, man. I was like, who is that? You know, I really didn't know. Oh, it's Farrell. Some of the shots he put on goal. I mean, props and credit to the New England Revolution to just demand their team to go for it, right? We're going to add players up top. We're going to push our lines higher. We're going to try to find this game. And they made it interesting. However, obviously, this team of Philadelphia with a great back line, with a great goalie and a good structure ends up killing the game on a set piece. That's also very interesting, the way it was taken to the first post, down low, and Donovan gets at the end of it, puts it away. So good for Philadelphia, but they get through. They get the job done. But am I more comfortable or confident with saying they're going to get far? No, I really don't. I think they're going to struggle in the next phase, and they might not make it to that final.
Because they'd have to get through Cincinnati, and Cincinnati won't have Matt Miazga. What was Matt Miazga thinking, allegedly?
I mean, I have no idea, man. This is a guy that I just found out that 8 of his 11 yellow cards have come of non-soccer actions. So you got to figure out what you're doing, man, because you're costing your team. What was the point of that? I mean, I just don't understand, man. You scored the goal. Good job. Get back, celebrate with your team. What are you doing over there? Just costing your team. It doesn't matter what you were doing. You were trying to instigate or whatever. You cannot put yourself in a position to cost your team. And it's that simple. It is that simple. Stay disciplined. Stay in the game. Have your mind in the final objective. Once the game is over, go do whatever you want. Go taunt. Go crazy. Go crazy and figure it out. But during the game, during a specific and key moment like penalties, come on, man. You know better than that. You know better than that. But you just can't keep costing your team. But when I saw that stat, it just tells me that somebody needs to have a serious conversation with Matt Miazga and tell him, man, if you're going to continue to not be able to control yourself, I'm going to ship you out. It's as simple as that.
Games 3 this weekend. It is Seattle and Dallas tomorrow, Houston RSL on Saturday, and Columbus and Atlanta on Sunday. What happens in games 3?
Woo, some great games, by the way. The Dallas-Seattle is going to be cagey. It's going to be, I think, slow. It's going to be a one-goal game, whether it's a 1-0 or a 2-1. I think Dallas is going to come in here and play in a deep block, make it uncomfortable for Jordan Morris in this one. I asked Brian Smetzer this week about Jordan's struggle whenever a team plays deeper, because his forte is playing into space. He's getting behind the center backs. But when there is no space to run into, when you can get behind the center backs, his link-up play and hold-up play isn't his forte. It isn't great. His link-up play is not what he does. So Brian seems very comfortable and confident that Jordan can do that. So if Seattle's going to be able to win this game, they're going to need Jordan Morris to have a really good link-up play, hold-up play, be more than just a guy trying to get behind the defenders, because Dallas is not going to allow you to do that in this one. I can guarantee you that. So can this team find the goals? Can they stretch out their defense? Can Leo Chu be as exciting and important as he's been in the regular season at times? Because he hasn't been in this playoffs. Can Nicolas Odero give you some magic coming off the bench? Can Nuhu not be as inconsistent he had a fantastic game one. He went in from a hero into a zero in game two. So you need to really take this team and say, there is no room for errors. This is your home. Let's make it happen. But that's going to be an interesting one. I still see Seattle coming over with the win. I do not want it going into penalty kicks, because penalty kicks have not been Seattle's friend in elimination rounds, whether it's CONCACAF or MLS. So I think Seattle needs to win it. I think they will win it in 90, but it's going to be a cagey match. Houston, RSL, I still don't know what happened in Houston. They did not look sharp. They didn't look fast and furious as they had in the past. Quiñones wasn't able to make a difference. Coco Carrasquilla had a couple of chances, but they just weren't able to do what they have shown you at the end of the season. And you could tell how frustrated Olsen was, because in the press conference, he was going in deep on the reporters, basic questions, and he was taking it extremely defensively. You could tell that he was just ready to go. He didn't want you to see it, man, but those cars, that salt was showing also. You got to be able to be better than that. So I do expect Houston to take care of this one. I'm going to stay with my prediction that they'll get to the end of the Western Conference final, but it won't be easy, because RSL, they smell blood, and they know that they can get to you. Savarino's been really good. Chicho Arango had a couple of opportunities coming off the bench. He's going to be more rested, more ready in the second game. So you better have a game plan to minimize his importance in the final third. And then Columbus Atlanta, man, it has been fun. It has been as fun as any other game, more than any other game. This is the one I wanted to watch. I didn't care about the St. Louis, Kansas City. I wasn't high on Red Bull Cincinnati. I wanted to watch Columbus and Atlanta, because it was going to be fun, and it has been. Lots of goals, lots of great play. Gonzalo Pineda really put it together in this last game. And the three acquisitions, I put that on social media. Gigi, Sava, Silva, all fantastic in this one. The connections, Gigi's not just his ability to score goals and fly high like an eagle to get to that ball and that in his header, but is the effort, is the commitment, the sacrifice, the defensive pressure, the way he comes back. I mean, man, he's a guy that you want to have in the battlefield, man. Just he gives you that sense of, man, we're going to leave it all out on the field, and it's making me nervous, because I had Columbus moving on from this one, and I feel terrible, because I know everybody's like, but Gonzalo's your boy. He is, man. Goes, I'm high on Gonzalo, but I just felt like Columbus was a team that was hard to stop, and oh boy, did Atlanta do it. They took the ball away. They were balanced defensively, which Gonzalo has been asking and trying to do all season. They were dangerous out in the flanks. Almada was doing his thing. So I just think that this is anybody's game. Flip a coin, figure it out. Just make sure you're in front of your TV when this game goes along, because it's gonna be amazing.
All right, what's going on, Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports? I know you got to have another cup of coffee before you tee off on that today.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We're going to be there in about 40 minutes. Going to be a good one. We're going to have the voices from New England, Philadelphia. We got a couple of videos and interviews coming in from there. We're going to break down the difference between game one to game two of this Atlanta team, how game three can play out. We're going to talk about Seattle. We're going to see and try to break down exactly what it is that they need to do to beat Dallas and how the rest of this Western Conference can go through. At Pulso Sports, you can find all the interviews that we had this week. We had Brian Smetzer, we had Jackson Reagan, we had Alex Roldan. So go ahead and check it out at Pulso Sports.
All right, my friend, we will catch up again next week. We'll do it again at 10:30 and 7:30, and hopefully you won't have to make the mad dash to the school to make sure that you hand off stuff that folks forget. Be safe, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Niko Moreno, Pulso Sports and the Soccer Bar. See, he leaves our show, and then he does all of his prep for the next show in line when he gets into his busy day. So let's take the tour real quick and get into some of the stories that we have. The FA is apparently reviewing Chelsea's TikTok of the Sterling missile throwing event. So during their celebration of the equalizer at Tottenham, Raheem Sterling is confident. He is confident he threw a missile that had been directed at the Chelsea players back to the side of the Tottenham pitch and not into the crowd after the FA decided to review the incident. They were targeted, the Chelsea players, by a missile from the home crowd as they celebrated Palmer's equalizer from the spot in the 4-1 win. Sterling can be seen launching the object back in the direction of the stands, but his intention was to remove it from the pitch. Both he and the club believed it did not end up back in the crowd. Should the FA agree with Sterling and Chelsea, forwards unlikely to be banned for throwing an object back into the crowd, which Richarlison and Didier Drogba have served suspensions for in the past. Caught on a video from pitch side, originated on Chelsea's own TikTok account, has resulted in the FA reviewing the footage under threat of receiving a suspension if the FA does charge him. Richarlison got a one-match ban for throwing the lit flare back into the crowd for Everton against Chelsea in May. Drogba got 3 in 2008 when he threw a coin at Burnley fans during their League Cup defeat on penalties. Mickey Van de Ven unlikely to play again this year for Spurs with the injury update there. Well, obviously, we'll keep an eye on that. The Women's FA Cup prize fund is going to double to nearly £6 million. That's good news there. Manor Solomon has been suspended from Instagram. Spurs winger Manor Solomon suspended from Instagram after a pro-Israel post from Matt Law at the Telegraph, and this was yesterday. Instagram account suspended after he used it to show support for Israel. Telegraph Sport can reveal that Solomon, who is currently injured, found out his Instagram account was deactivated while in Israel after being given permission to travel back to his home country by Spurs. Spurs quickly got in contact with Meta, and Solomon's account was restored Wednesday afternoon. It was after it was deactivated earlier in the week, prompting strong criticism from the Israeli Football Association. Meta denied Solomon's account was suspended as a result of any of his posts, saying, quote, Solomon's account was removed by mistake and has been quickly restored. His account wasn't removed because of any content he has shared. Tottenham got an apology from Meta to pass on to Solomon in Israel. No more detailed explanation for why or how his Instagram account was suspended. Premier League clubs are going to vote on a rule that will block Newcastle's move for Ruben Neves. This comes from Tom Morgan. Rules around deals between associated clubs already apply to some degree on permanent transfers, but this would tackle loan moves. Neves' potential loan to Newcastle could be scuppered, the word from the Telegraph, as Premier League clubs vote on whether to fast-track a ban on such deals between associated clubs. A temporary measure which would stop incoming loans will be raised at the next shareholders meeting on November 21st, while talks continue over long-term solutions. Claimed privately that the measure is not specifically designed to stop Newcastle signing Neves. However, the Telegraph reported on how rivals would have been furious at the prospect of Al Hilal loaning Neves to Newcastle. Both teams are owned by the PIF. Associated party transaction rules already apply to some degree in the transfer of players on a permanent deal. Newcastle had to demonstrate to the Premier League that they had obtained fair market value when selling the winger, Alan St. Maximin, to Al Ahly, another PIF club, back in the summer. Now there's a movement within the league to introduce an extra temporary measure, not extra temporary, but extra temporary measure to protect the integrity of the competition while longer-term solutions are established. So Neves was linked to Newcastle after joining Al Hilal from Wolves back in June after the Sandro Tonali suspension. So that is where that is coming from. Let's see, trying to quickly see if there's any other news. Ben Rumsby at the Telegraph, Premier League managers are demanding changes to VAR after Mikel Arteta's outburst. No real surprise there. Sam Dowling at the Telegraph this might be required reading for the day. Champions League article on how the sexting scandal sent Ajax into a free fall. So we'll post that into the comments on the Twitch pitch, and that'll be the required reading of the day. Checking to see what our friends at The Guardian may have up their sleeve this morning. And once again, subscribing to both. So we'll see what continues there. Apparently there is no space for Raheem Sterling in Gareth Southgate's squad as he's trying to piece together his squad to go forward. Real Sociedad vows to take legal action against Benfica fans, from Sid Lowe at The Guardian. Benfica president Rui Costa has apologized to his Real Sociedad counterpart after visiting supporters threw flares onto home fans during the Champions League match Wednesday night. Also trouble in the streets around the Reale Arena before the game with a group of around 50 ultras throwing fireworks and sticks. 10 people needed medical attention. 4 arrests have been made so far. Real Sociedad president Joaquin Aperribai: "We will pursue them legally. If these delinquents have to go to jail, they will go." Anthony Taylor had to pause the game in which fireworks were thrown onto the pitch during the match. Sociedad won that one 3-1. Flares were also thrown from the away section onto the home supporters below. Niko Moreno said afterward there had been moments when the players' minds were not on the game. So we'll keep an eye on that with Benfica and Real Sociedad happening yesterday. News for Jessica Charman. Government plays down hopes that Reading could be a test case for a football regulator. The culture minister cannot commit to the pilot for the League One club, an independent regulator set to be established by January of 2025. So we'll keep an eye on that when it comes to Reading and all of their problems. Like I said, Jessica Charman, hopefully we can have her on early part of next week, and we'll discuss that and everything else that's going on. And cannot commit to using Reading as a test case to see how the proposed independent football regulator would operate. The culture minister, Sir John Whittingdale, has told Parliament he hopes the new regulator will be established quickly before the next general election, which would be held by January of 2025 at the least. Whittingdale said football clubs such as Reading that are in financial turmoil will continue to inform policy and development and decisions about how the regulator is set up, but he couldn't commit to a pilot scheme at this point. Once again, they've been docked 4 points so far this season for various financial breaches, recently referred to an independent disciplinary commission for continued non-payment of debts owed to His Majesty's Royalty and Customs. That is the English version of the IRS. So we'll keep an eye on that when it comes to the Reading situation. And we'll keep an eye, obviously, on the Reading situation and let you know what's going on there. I'm trying to see if there's anything else to discuss. I think we're okay. I think we're good. Obviously, the big news this morning, it was coaching changes in both USL Championship and Major League Soccer. Hernan Losada out in Montreal. That was the big news of the morning. So we'll continue to talk about that and continue to talk about everything else going forward. Tomorrow, once again, Thomas Rungan joining us at 10 o'clock to talk about the new movie. And our friends from Beyond Goals joining us at 9:30. And Prem and Proper in the WSL preview review programming. That'll be out tomorrow afternoon as well. So a very busy Friday for us here on Soccer's Morning Show. So thanks to Niko Moreno, Pulso Sports on the Soccer Bar. Thanks to Kaylor Hodges from the USL Show. Thanks to John Bradford, the head coach of North Carolina FC. And thanks to Jake Levy and everybody at NCFC for orchestrating that early in the morning to help us out in telling the story of North Carolina FC as they won USL League One. So a big show, and thanks to all of you for hanging out with us as you always do. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, 9:05, to get you ready for the weekend and a match with Atlanta and Columbus to determine who goes on to the Eastern Conference semifinals to take on the Purple team. So we'll talk about it all again tomorrow morning, and we will roll through it all as we do. Once again, thanks to all of you guys. Since it's the end of the show, this means I get to do the thing I'm going to do next on the board. Mucha Placha, play it safe. We'll see you at 9:05 tomorrow morning.